attended council hearings in person. You've tuned into our televised proceedings on Channel 13. Now, you have the chance to listen to us on the radio as we demystify our work and the people who do it. This is not a council hearing. This is Hearing the Council with your host, Josh Gibson.
Thank you, deep voice person with a funky backbeat. Indeed, this is not a council hearing. This is Hearing the Council. You can't have a government without a council, so you can't have a government radio station without a council show. This is it. I'm Josh Gibson, Director of Communications for the Council. You may also know me as the Council's voice on social media at Council of DC. And today we are once again quite pleased to be with frequent guest, Ward 3 Councilmember Matt Frumin. Thank you so much for being with us, Councilmember.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh.
And we are going to go through a number of topics that we had planned previously, but given everything that's happening, that's up in the air currently with the district's budget crisis that we had nothing to do with, I just wanted to give you a chance. We don't want to dominate the other topics. We want to make sure we do justice too, but I did want to give you a chance to make a quick comment or speak to the circumstances and the response.
Well, thank you very much, Josh. I think, ironically, like this won't come out until hopefully the dust has settled on this. But I do want to make an observation that we learned over the weekend about this crisis, and I won't go into the details, but it's a $1 billion threat to the budget of the District of Columbia. And I thought it was incredibly impressive the way first thing Monday morning, people got together, began to get together, formulate a strategy, bring together different stakeholders, the mayor, the chairman, members of the council, Eleanor Holmes Norton. And if that started at 9 a.m. on Monday, at 3:30 on Monday, there was a press conference on the lawn of the Capitol where we together made our case. In the meantime, all of us have been working, reaching out to folks in Congress to try to get to a good result, and civil society activated in really impressive ways, getting out there and making the case for the district. I don't know where this is going to land, but the exercise of having gone through this is really a reflection of the strength of the district and really impressive, and shows how we can come together to deal with the challenges that are going to be in front of us for some time.
Right. I mean, we in the district are limited in terms of the number of elected officials we're allowed to have, but the elected officials we are allowed to have, at least at the moment, mayor, council, representative, I think did come together in a wonderful way. And we can't call our member of Congress, we can't call our senators the way other folks can, but damn it, we can rally when we need to, and we needed to.
We needed to, and our residents really rallied in really kind of exciting ways. And it's not a gas tank. You don't use it up, it's a muscle. And every time you use it, it gets stronger and it gets easier to use the next time. So I think a ton to be proud of about what we as a jurisdiction have done in the last 4 days.
Yeah, and it's a bit like when you go skiing and you're not used to going skiing, you're reminded of muscles you didn't know you had. And I think we are going to need to, those muscles will get frequent use in the next several years. So, all right, well, thank you for your work on that, and for finding an upbeat message during a difficult time. So now we're going to pivot back to the topics we had thought about addressing in advance. And first and foremost is you are a committee chairman. You have a committee role. The listeners probably know this, that at least as long as Chairman Mendelson has been the chair, his general practice is that new council members get a term, get 2 years to figure out what it means to be a council member, and where the bathrooms are, and how the coffee maker works, and all those new job kind of things. Because it's a lot, I'm teasing, but it's a ton to get up to speed. And then in year 3, you get the additional giant heavy lift of committee chairmanship. So why don't you tell us a bit about your committee and how you're adjusting to the role?
Great. So, but I'm actually going to start with that Chairman Mendelson policy, because when I first was elected, I said to Chairman Mendelson, I have been an attorney for 30 plus years. I could chair a committee, and made suggestions of committees that maybe I could chair right out of the box. And he declined that offer. And in retrospect, I think he was so right. And there is an enormous amount to learn. And you need to take the time to go to lots of other committee hearings and to learn the people and learn the processes. And had I been a chair in the first 2 years, I don't think I would have been in a position to do the preparation work that I was able to do in those 2 years. So I'm actually quite grateful to the chairman for the policy that he uses about not assigning committee chairs to people in their first 2 years. I then got my committee assignment. I had a subcommittee assignment in the fall of last year. So I had training wheels and getting started. And then I got a committee assignment. And in candor, it was daunting to me. I have a number of things under my committee: libraries, Office of Cable Television, Office of Latin American Affairs, Office of Asian Pacific Islander Affairs. But the big one is the Department of Human Services, through which much of our social safety net is managed. And it is a very big agency. There are an enormous amount of challenges. It is so important to many of our residents. So it is, there is a heavy weight of responsibility that comes with it. It's not that I'm new to the issues, but those are not the issues that I've spent a decade working on. I've worked on education and parks and things like that. So there is a process of getting educated in the work that I need to be doing here. And once I adjusted to the fact that, okay, this is my brief, I've dove in and trying to learn as much as I can from different stakeholders, from the agency, from people who work with the agency, to advocates who lobby in behalf of different kinds of policies that the agency should adopt. I have a lot of humility. I feel like this budget season, I don't think you're going to see major innovations coming from me. I may have to deal with ideas that come from others, because I don't feel like I'm quite, I need to learn as much as I can before I decide what it is I think is the right solution here. But there's clearly things that we need to do to strengthen our systems and to rethink, in, I believe, some of the ways in which we're delivering programs. And I'm very excited about that challenge. And I want to be careful to be as thoughtful as I can about the kinds of things that I propose for how we, over time, strengthen the agency and the programs that it administers.
Yeah, having been doing this job for 10 years and seeing council members arrive, it is kind of fun as an outsider to watch the life cycle of the, how dare you not give me a committee for the first 2 years? I could walk and chew gum at the same time. And every council member does it. And then I think every council member, you put it extremely well, it's like kind of watch what you wish for. Like the only thing worse than not having a committee is having a committee. Because once you get the committee, the scope of the responsibility hits you. And not that you're ignorant to it ahead of time, but I mean, it hits you full force. And man, I think it's one of the hardest jobs of being a council member is that committee chairmanship or that committee role. And it gets not a ton of glamour, not a ton of glory, but it is hard, detailed, rigorous work.
really is. And there's the mundane of it, of there's a hearing and 100 witnesses, and you need to sit there for 8 hours, and you need to be attentive to all of the witnesses because they're there taking time out of their day to educate you about the issues that you have a responsibility for. But those are not easy days to be in place for that kind of time and stay focused for that kind of time. I feel very fortunate that I have a committee staff that's really excellent. And so each challenge that I've faced on the council, I go in with a fair amount of humility, like, am I going to be able to do this and do this well? I do feel like we've come through the first chapter is the oversight season. And I really can't picture how we could have done better at managing the oversight system and getting the questions out, getting the responses. These are all the things that go into it that are sort of behind the scenes, reviewing the responses, preparing for each of the hearings, working with the agencies to know, to begin to hone in on what it is that you need to press in on. It is a lot. It's great. If you're a curious person, being a committee chair and being in a position to really look into something discrete and try to understand it and how you can make people's lives better by understanding it, is a huge privilege, but it is a lot and it takes up a lot of space. I didn't go to nearly as many oversight hearings for other committees this season than I have in other years because I just didn't have the time. And that's all good. That's the evolution of being in this role. But it is not a little thing. It's a big thing, and I'm really excited to be embarked on this new adventure.
And I think the good news is it's the longer you're with a committee, it's an iterative process. So, now you've built a strong foundation in this first cycle. Next year, the relationship with the agency directors will strengthen. You'll kind of know, you'll have asked the obvious questions. You'll be able to go a bit deeper. And, that was when you really see mastery after, a number of cycles through the process.
Well, and that's exactly right, Josh. So, if you just even think about, again, mundane things, we had to get questions out to the agencies. So we could go back and we could get the questions that were asked last year, and we didn't have a lot of time. You find out at the end of December what it's going to be, and then in January you want to get those questions out. So we had to go get the questions. We had to figure out how those questions would be tailored for the coming year. But this is before we've done all of the learning about the agency. And I think we did well and we got the right questions out, but that's a little bit of a fire drill. Then you're setting up and preparing for the different hearings, and that's a little bit of a fire drill. And meeting with all of the different advocates and meeting with the agency and doing that in an iterative way, that's a lot. And that's why I say this first time is so much a learning period. Next year, in November, when we're experts in what's going on with the agency and have figured out what are the things that we think are the most important to be drilling down, we'll do those questions in a different way with much more time to prepare. We'll be able to get them out and ask for responses earlier in the process. When we get to the hearings next year, I will know the 5 issues that are critical that I need to be digging into in a very thorough way. It's not that I didn't know the issues this year, but I will know them so much better next year. So you're right, that iterative approach, everybody benefits from. And often you do something and you finish it and you think, you're daunted by it, and then you think, God, I want to do it again because I could do it better. And that's how I feel about oversight now, is I think we did quite well, but we could have done better. And now I want to have a chance. Now I'm looking forward to the chance when I'll be able to do it that much better next year.
Yeah, the analogy that I've made before is that I think this is urban myth, but it still works well for the analogy, is when they paint the Golden Gate Bridge, they start at one end, and by the time they get to the other end and they finish painting it, it's time to start again at the first end. And I feel like the oversight in the budget process is kind of that, that you start, like you said, in the fall, you start coming up with questions.
Right.
Oversight goes through the winter, budget goes through the spring, budget passage goes through summer recess happens, then you're back and it's fall and you're writing questions again. It's a never-ending process.
It's a never-ending process, which is good. I mean, and we could do, I hope that I am in a position to use the committee to do targeted oversight during the course of the year as well on different issues. But you're right, it never ends, and it's exactly like the painting the Golden Gate Bridge. I think it is a good analogy to use.
And you, as you pointed out, have in your committee human services and homelessness in particular that are always the most important problems that we're dealing with in many ways, and that have heightened attention to them in the current political circumstance, and competing demands. There are people that incorrectly see homelessness as a cleanliness issue, as a visibility issue, and as an aesthetics issue. Then there's the very real circumstance that it's mental health and it's human beings. How, and I know you're, like you said, you're new to the committee, but how do you tackle that? How are you compassionate on this critical problem, given knowing that the eyes of the world are watching and may have a different perspective?
Yeah, well, there's lots of different perspectives out there, that is for sure. And that is one of the great blessings of being in this position, is that I have the opportunity to absorb all of those different perspectives, and then the privilege to try to take it all in and formulate policies that I think will best meet the needs of our citizens. And it's a lot. I mean, this is a space in which there's a lot of human suffering. And we're looking at how do we best help address that human suffering. And in candor, how do we do that in an environment of limited resources? And how do we get this job done as well as possible? Part of it is hearing the ideas from lots of different people about how we can do it best. You said you asked about compassion. It's also getting out there and talking with people who are experiencing homelessness, experiencing poverty, and making sure that I'm hearing from them as fellow human beings about what it is that they're going through, how they got there, what it is they need, what would help them get on their feet. And so it is a project to touch lots of different worlds, some of it painful to see, some decisions painful to make, but to try to do the best I can on a set of issues that's so critical to people, to very vulnerable people.
Absolutely. And the response is not a government response necessarily. It's kind of like you were saying about the response to the budget crisis we're going through, that it's all of civil society coming together and combating an issue like homelessness, and that there's certain resources the government can bring to bear. And then there's certain places where we're not the best fit necessarily, and us helping others is the best answer.
Yeah, 1,000 flowers bloom. Like I touch this in lots of different ways, but I mean, there are people who need a little help getting up onto their feet. And where that's the case, we need to give them that help. And there are people who need a lot of help. And how it is that you do that, how you get there and really give people a chance to turn their lives around. It's not easy, but we need to do the best that we possibly can.
What from, this could be from your outreach to organizations, this could be from the performance oversight hearings. Do any examples come to mind of things where you were just where you were struck by the sadness of a circumstance? Or conversely, with hope, was there a moment when, by meeting the people doing the work or the people suffering, that your eyes were opened and that you got past the sheaths of paper and it made you human for a minute?
Yeah, so I mean, one that's depressing is the most recent encampment clearing, where we got word of it, and this was the first time there was an encampment clearing where I was the chair of this committee. And so I went by the encampment in the day that it was announced, when the clearing was going to happen the next day, and spoke with some of the people there. And so you saw how compromised some of the people were, the ones that I spoke with. And then what happened was the city offered them, all of the people in that encampment, space at the Aston, which is a new facility and an excellent facility for people transitioning out of homelessness. There were 8 people there. 4 of them took that. One of them, and 4 of them did not. And what's sad is the 4 who did not. What do we do to help them when there's this, we offered this option and they're so compromised that they chose to stay outdoors, to go try to find a new place, as opposed to accepting shelter and support at the Aston? So that's sobering. In terms of uplifting, there's lots of uplifting. There are lots of places where people are being helped, and you go there and you see how people whose position was so precarious and now it's getting better, and there's a prospect of a trajectory to independence and to a life that is filled with more positive things and less pain. And I see that at places like Woodley House. I see that at places like the Brooks in Ward 3. There's lots of places where when you go, you see people whose lives have been changed by the care of others and the support of our government.
Yeah, I am a homebody, and there's nowhere I feel more comfortable than in my home. So it is paralyzing to think about not, everything else going on in the world. I know I can come to my home and be in a safe place and be with people who love me. So to know that you don't have that place is terrifying. And then to know that if you find some tiny semblance of home in an encampment, and then you lose even that tiny semblance, again, it's just petrifying. I have so much compassion for being in that circumstance.
It's hard. Yeah.
And in terms of the one removal of the one encampment, the what I had read at least was that was in the works, had been postponed for weather, and then that got carried through on, and that any coincidence of timing in terms of public statements about the need for clearing encampments was a coincidence. Does that track?
I mean, I think my understanding is, yes, it was scheduled. Yes, it was canceled due to weather. Yes, it was going to happen at some point soon. Whether or not the day that was chosen was a day that was in response is, I don't know, to the president's tweet. But that's very, very different than it was not on the table at all, and all of a sudden there's a tweet and then there's an encampment clearing. This was something that if it didn't happen on that day, it was going to happen in some day very soon, and it happened on that day.
And as you said, there are 4 people who were housed that might not have been housed on the same time frame if there hadn't been the clearing of the encampment.
That's right, and that's where your challenge is the encampment clearing, I think, was positive for those 4 people and not positive for the other 4 people. And what do you do in a setting for those other 4 people? That's the conundrum.
Yeah, that is a challenge. You did mention you also in your committee you have oversight over the libraries, which is interesting in the sense that a fair number of homeless people do seek warmth and comfort and company in our libraries. So I don't know if that was deliberate or a happy accident, but talk a bit about library oversight.
So, I mean, it's interesting because the folks at the libraries wondered the same thing that you wonder. Is this strategic? But I don't believe, you'd have to ask Phil, Chairman Mendelson, if it was strategic. I think Phil needs to put together committees for everybody, and so he's got lots of puzzle pieces he needs to put together. One of the things that I had expressed interest in was the libraries. I love the libraries, and so that went into my committee. But there is some overlap, and at the oversight hearing, I had some conversation with the director of the libraries, Richard Reyes-Gamelan, about this role that they play delivering human services, which is different than your classic library science role. And what do we make of that? And I mean, I think ultimately the libraries are going to be in that business because they provide a place of refuge, and people who are in homelessness are going to seek places where they can get some refuge. And so then the library gets into the business of managing that and delivering services to folks and trying to take the moments that we have them there to try to help them. And it's a new world. It's not new, it's not like this month, but it's recent years that the libraries have moved into playing this role, and they're doing it, I think, as well as they can. In the meantime, the libraries, we're not in the salad days that we were financially before, and the world of libraries has changed post-COVID and because of lots of different technologies. And so it's a really interesting time to be diving into the operation of our fabulous library system. I mean, we really have a great library system, but the demands are different. Ebooks wasn't a big thing 10 years ago, but now ebooks, what role does that play? All the different kinds of online services that the libraries are providing. What role does the library serve in trying to help children who might not otherwise be exposed to reading and books? What role can the library play in reaching those families and getting them drawn into the life of reading and the life of ideas? And it is a very, very exciting and challenging time for libraries. And it's also kind of fun in the library space to see the transformation of our libraries, which had gotten bedraggled and now are spectacular for the most part. And we continue down this road with the facilities master plan to finish off making each of our libraries a showcase. I mean, often you go into a library and you think, wow, I haven't seen anything as beautiful as this. And then you go to another one and it's more beautiful. And so there's that piece that is also very, very exciting, and all the different things that are happening on the inside. Very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the library is almost like a little tiny government unto itself. You know, it provides social services, it provides education, it provides entertainment. They had a wonderful exhibit on the Green Book, Negro Green Book at the MLK Library, and it was just a wonderful, fascinating exhibit. But they're just called upon to do crafting courses and resume workshops and lectures and
it's, I mean, MLK, what a great institution it is. And the Green Book, the Da Vinci, I mean, all the different things that happen there. And then they happen in the branch libraries. The branch libraries are great also. When I started talking about the facilities thing, I was thinking, and I'll bring it back, that it's also like your Golden Gate Bridge analogy, because as soon as we finish making all the libraries, bringing them all to the 21st century, we're going to need to turn to the ones that we did early and do more things with them. I think, you know, an example of that is the Shaw Library, where I think that's an early, beautiful new library that's that requires a relook at, is it designed to meet the community that's there? What are the things that you do in a world where ebooks is such a much more important thing, where Wi-Fi is a more important thing? You know, we had a period where our libraries had big sections that were devoted to computers that the library put there. Well, you still need to have computers like that, but now with the ubiquitousness of Wi-Fi, you don't need as many of those, because lots of people come in with their laptop and get onto the Wi-Fi system. So it's really interesting to see how the libraries evolve to meet the needs and take advantage of the different technologies, and really excited to be able to be a part of that.
yeah. And one last agency that you have oversight that I would be remiss to not mention is the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment, because they run DC Radio. And this, in addition to being a podcast, you know, and on the council YouTube channel, is a radio show, you know, that runs daily on DC Radio. So I'm grateful for that. You know, the council and the executive branch do not always overlap in responsibilities, and I think this show is one of the rare cases where there's an executive infrastructure in terms of the radio show for a council product. So we're in a tiny, tiny middle part of the Venn diagram, and you have oversight over it now. So thank you for that.
You better be nice to me, because I have oversight over you.
Yeah, exactly. As if you didn't already as a council member, but we'll set that aside.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I mean, again, this is an agency that I had focused on a little over the years, but not a ton. And I was very impressed with folks in that agency and the things that they're trying to do. And one of it is an information delivery system, but another part of it is an economic development system and what they're trying to do in terms of recruiting films being shot in this area and things like that. I mean, there just was one that was done up in Chevy Chase, DC, and it's a big thing. There's a lot of economic opportunity in this space, and the folks at the agency really get it about what it is that they can do in that space. And they're also being very active about trying to create pathways for folks to enter the workforce in this space, because there are jobs in this space. So they're doing innovative things to get folks trained so that they can go on and make a career in the radio, television, sound, video world. It's another impressive agency.
Yeah, in the facility, the radio station part of it, and the video, TV parts of it are super impressive. And I know they've gotten Emmys and Grammys, and they do, like you said, a really good job of highlighting minority businesses. Yeah, they do a bang up job.
When I had, it's interesting because you go into an oversight hearing, and I had a whole big long list of questions having read the oversight responses, and some of them I thought, like, this is gonna be tough. Like, I wonder what they're gonna say to this. But in each case, they actually had really good answers to what it was they were doing, how it worked. It was, and I felt like I put them through pretty tough oversight, and they came out of the back end of it quite well.
And a year from now, there needs to be a hearing the council question or comment made during their oversight hearing, just to keep them on edge. I wanted to make sure you ask them something about this show.
Oh, okay. Yes,
how
yes,
much
yes.
you enjoy it, you know.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
How my salary, which is $0 for running the show, be quadrupled. That put a pin in it for next year.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Gotcha.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. We're gonna have to come back to the other two topics in a future show because we got a little carried away on committee stuff. But before we go, as always, we have to do the fun round.
Here we go.
And here we go. And the fun round, we're sticking with this one for a while, is I'm going to give you a wacky task, and you're going to tell me which of your colleagues you would like to have tackle that task and why. Okay. The first one is, we're coming out of this season, but shovel your sidewalk.
Shovel my sidewalk. Okay. I mean, I'm thinking Robert, because I think he's a Starker. He's a young, strong guy. I think Robert would shovel my driveway, my sidewalk. Also, like, I gotta believe he's a great neighbor and very considerate, and would do a good job. So Robert to shovel my driveway.
Yeah, he's the only council member I think who's ever talked about their workout program on this show. So I think you're on firm ground there.
But sidewalk. I don't have a sidewalk in front of my house, unfortunately, but I go and shovel the sidewalks of all my neighbors. So if others, when asked that question, should pick me, although they might think I'm too old and frail.
No. It's good exercise. Okay, how about co-teaching a college class? If you were teaching a college class, who would you pull in to be a co-teacher or guest lecturer?
That's an interesting one. I think Christina would be fun to do that with. I think Christina is, I'm so impressed by my colleagues. Like, I feel so fortunate to be able to work with my colleagues. I think I often find myself, when Christina is asking questions, thinking, wow, good for her. Like, she's where I would hope to be in 2 years, where she knows where she's going and knows what she's interested in and asks questions that are pretty deep into it. So I think that she would be fun to do it. Zachary is also a ton of fun to do almost anything with, so Zachary might be a good one too.
Okay, now how about co-teaching a kindergarten class?
Oh boy. uh, so co-teaching a kindergarten class. All right, I'm going to use Zachary for that one, and I'm going to do the college class with Christina.
Okay, I think you're on firm ground on both of them.
He was a teacher, I believe.
Yes, I forget. I want to say 5th grade, so not quite that young, but I think he's got it in him. Okay, 2 more. One is, who would you like to go have you take you out clothes shopping?
No, Brooke. But I'll tell you, my granddaughter loves pink, and so and I told Brooke this story that my granddaughter loves pink, and she wears pink all of the time. And I said, not everything has to be pink. And before I could get the words out of what my granddaughter said, which was, why not? Brooke said, why not?
You just got to own it. The reality is you just got to own it.
So I don't want her to get me a whole lot of pink, but I think that she's got a good sense of style.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the last one is, who would you want to put on a puppet show with?
Put on a puppet show with?
That draws on a lot of skills: creativity, lack of inhibition, good with kids. You can go anywhere with that one.
Yeah, I think I want to spread the wealth. I think Janice would be fun to do that with, and also a lot of personalities. So when you're doing a puppet show, you're behind the screen, but you're projecting a personality. I think Janice would be great at doing that. I don't think I'd be very good, so I need somebody who would be a big help.
Yes, I'm still waiting for someone to answer Chairman Mendelson to the puppet show question, because I'm not sure how it would come out, but I'd pay to see that puppet show.
Yeah, it would be a different kind of puppet show.
A different puppet show.
Great skills. I'm having a hard time seeing him doing the puppet show, but let him prove me wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Okay, well, again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's a great privilege, and I realize you guys are helping me out by doing it. So thank you so much for taking the time. Listeners, remember to subscribe to our podcast on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search under Hearing the Council. Thanks again for joining us. Tune in next time. We are on the aforementioned DC Radio at 96.3 on your FM HD4 dial or at dcradio.gov. I'm Josh Gibson. This is not a council hearing. This is Hearing the Council. Thanks again, Councilmember. Good luck.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.